have to chlorinate the wastewater, but then what we do is we have a dechlorination system that dechlorinates and takes the chlorine out. And the chemicals we add are things to help settle and so a lot of it comes out as we settle the solids out of it. So I think that's the goal of a wastewater treatment plant, is to recover all the chemicals that they add as much as possible, and they're under legislation, under regulation, and their authority. The environmental authority that they have is they're expected to remove as much as possible.
Okay. Good answer.
Yeah.
The other thing too is we spent millions of dollars a few years back building a secondary treatment facility. How big of an effect has that had on what's going into the river? Some people suggest we didn't really need it. I'd like to get your opinion on that.
I think every time you improve a and you get to a more advanced technology, because they did it and I'm not an expert. I should start off by, I get to a point where I feel like I always have to answer questions, and I have to say I'm not the expert on the City of Cornwall's wastewater treatment plant. But my understanding of the technology is that we took a 1970s technology, and it was operated as under best conditions, and my understanding is that it was doing very well compared to it was primary treatment plus. But then we upgraded it to a more modern technology, and I think that was a good investment in the long run.
Okay. For not being an expert, that's a good answer. Thank you.
Councillor Carr. Your mic, please.
I fixed it. Good evening, Jeff. How are you doing? Good to see you again.
Good to see you, Councillor Carr. I don't remember you being around the table the last time I was here.
I know. I took a year off.
Okay.
Sort of a leave of absence, Your presentations are always very professional. They're very well done. In fact, I always send them on to my youngest son, who lives in Toronto, who has a great interest in the work you do, and I will make sure he gets a copy of this. I think the city has to recognize the kind of jewel we have in you and your presentations, and the reputation that you've garnered for not just for yourself, but this whole community, because the work you do is excellent.
Thank you.
And thank you, and keep coming back. Thank you, Jeff.
Will do. Thank you very much.
Well, thanks again, Jeff, and on behalf of the city, thank your employees as well for all the wonderful work they do on behalf of the river and the community here. So thank you, and we look forward to seeing you next year.
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
Don't bring the band with you next year.
Madam Clerk.
Councillor Carr, I thought you were going to bring out your guitar. I was.
Consent items. Our first item is Marguerite Duville subdivision, with a recommendation that Council give draft plan of subdivision approval to the request received from Grant Marion Construction Limited for the approval of a draft plan of subdivision subject to the following. A, the draft plan of subdivision approval be given to the draft plan on part of Lot 1, Concession 1, being parts 1 to 37 on Reference Plan 52R 5198, comprising approximately of 1.6 hectares, 4 acres of land. This draft plan will provide for 24 single detached lots to be developed as Phase 1. And B, that Block 1, a draft plan, be identified as dedicated parkland. And C, that Blocks 2 and 3 are reserved for future residential development and phases associated with the Marguerite Duville subdivision. And D, that the amended draft plan conditions contained in Appendix A of the Planning Advisory and Hearing Committee's technical report have been fulfilled to the satisfaction of city staff and external agencies. 2, Craft Shack's Rock the River Fall Edition, with a recommendation that council declare the Craft Shacks Rock the River Fall Edition an event of municipal significance. And we have a series of proclamation recommending the following: that council proclaim the week of October 3rd to 9th, 2021 as Fire Prevention Week in the City of Cornwall. That council proclaim the week of October 3rd to 9th, 2021 as Mental Awareness Week in the City of Cornwall, and approve the raising of the flag at 340 Pitt Street during that week. That council proclaim the week of October 4th to 10th, 2021 as Community Health and Wellbeing Week in the City of Cornwall. That council proclaim Wednesday, October 6th, 2021 as Energy Efficient Day in the City of Cornwall. And that council proclaim October 7th, 2021 as International Trigeminal Neuralgia Day in the City of Cornwall.
Motion moved by Councillor Towndale, second by Councillor DePel.
Excuse me, could we vote on number 1 separately? I requested at the beginning of the meeting.
So the motion will be for items 2 to 7 inclusive.
All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
And we will need a separate motion to adopt item 1.
Councillor DePel and Councillor Hollingsworth, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next items, Madame Clerk.
We have a resolution for the draft plan approval for Marguerite Duville.
Motion. Councillor McDonald, Councillor Hebert, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Unfinished business reports. 2nd Street West at Riverdale Terrace Waterfront Retirement Center, with an action recommended that council not proceed at this time with implementing any form of pedestrian crosswalk at this location, as it does not meet the warrants for pedestrian crossing control as identified in the Ontario Traffic Manual. And B, that administration continue to complete traffic studies in this area in order to conduct future warrant analysis for pedestrian crossing controls at this location over the next couple of years as further development occurs.
Motion.
Mr. Chair?
Councillor McDonald, Councillor Gardner. Any discussion? Councillor Hollingsworth.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a question to you, Mr. Fothrop. So basically, there's not enough traffic to justify a crosswalk, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct.
Now, do we have any other locations of crosswalks where the traffic may not meet the official regulations in the City of Cornwall?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I can't think of any at this time. I can't think of one location, but we didn't study it as part of this report.
Okay. Now, the gist of this report, if I get it correctly, is if we put a crosswalk up there, drivers will get mad and then conceivably become frustrated and drive faster someplace else. Or other possibility is if we put a crosswalk there, people will rear-end each other because technically they don't realize there's a crosswalk there. Is that correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's some of the recommendations of the report. The problem is when you have an unwarranted signal and an infrequently used signal. The light is predominantly green most of the time, and drivers become accustomed to the light being green and are not as reactive in the instance that the light turns red.
Okay. One other question, Mr. Fothrop, if I get it right. The gist of this in the first place was to accommodate seniors moving back and forth across 2nd Street, because there'll soon be another senior building on one side and 2 senior buildings on the opposite. So the original kind of premise, if I'm trying to read between the lines a little bit, was to accommodate those seniors going back and forth. Am I getting that right?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that was the premise of the report, or of the petition.
Okay. That being said, Your Worship, I'm going to probably vote against the recommendation. I appreciate where our manager is coming. understand the technical expertise here is part of the deal, but I think my mother has since passed now, but she resided in one of those residences, and when they're bringing seniors across to get ice cream or whatever the case may be, that I don't know how they can get across that street safely without a crosswalk. Because, even someone who's young and spry and in the best health ever, it's not really the easiest street to get across. And there's no other, the first traffic light that they're gonna get to is at the bottom of the hill on Second Street. So that's not to say, well, we'll go to the traffic light. Well, that's not an option. We don't have any other traffic lights on that roadway, right, Mr. Fothrop? There's no other traffic lights that I'm aware of?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, there's no traffic lights until you get to Brookdale Avenue, but to that point, we did factor in an increased, time to get across the street in our warrant analysis for people that may take longer.
Fair enough. I appreciate, as I said, I'm certainly not going to try to out-engineer an engineer, but I guess as an observation, it just seems to me that this crosswalk strikes me as the only practical solution for the residents in that area who, they're not moving across as fast as other people. So I'm probably going to vote against this. I don't know what the alternative would be, but I don't think not having a crosswalk fixes their problem. So I'm not going to support it.
Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I have a question too of Mr. Fothrop. If I'm reading this correctly, I have to say it sounds counterintuitive that we would be liable as a municipality to litigation if we actually put in a crosswalk or some sort of pedestrian crossing if it's not required by MTO standards. Is that what I'm reading here?
Through you, Madam Mayor, yes, we do make that comment in the report. If you implement, traffic signals are highly regulated, they must follow applicable federal and provincial standards. If you do implement a signal that is unwarranted and does pose some potential risks because of what we've outlined in the report, yes, you could conceivably be held liable in some event.
Okay. So it seems to me there are two places in town where we do have pedestrian crosswalk opportunities. One, of course, is down at Edward Street and, in front of Nativity Church. And then on York Street, I think between the park and pretty close to the Marie de la Fere apartments. So is there a higher volume of traffic there or more pedestrian traffic there than there is down on Second Street?
Through you, Madam Mayor, so the one on Montreal Road that you're referring to, I believe, yes, I would safe to say that there is a higher volume of pedestrians in that area compared to this one. In terms of the York Street one, that location was also unwarranted.
Okay, well, I'm glad to hear you're going to continue to monitor it and you recognize that 2020 was an unusual year because of COVID affecting, I suppose, all kinds of outdoor activities, but I'm glad you're going to keep an eye on it. I think, too, that it looks to me like it's warranted, but can't argue with the statistics, eh? You've done your research. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would it be fair to say that the construction going on in that area may have caused the traffic to be maybe a little less, or at the very least, driving a lot slower?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yeah, I probably don't think it would have impacted traffic very much on Second Street. I don't believe it had any impact on the study.
Okay. I've seen in other communities painted crosswalks with signage leading up to basically say, give the right of way to pedestrians. Is that an option?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, it is an option. It still wasn't warranted when we did the analysis, but yes, that is an option. Yeah. One of the other, I didn't mention it earlier in response to Councillor Hollingsworth, but one of the other issues is the petition is requesting a mid-block crosswalk in front of their facilities. The issue with the mid-block crosswalk is that there is a number of commercial driveways also in close proximity to where it was shown, which poses a significant amount of problems for implementing a signalized crosswalk at that location, because you have to have driveways located a certain distance away from a signalized intersection. So it also poses challenges in that regards as well.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor McIntosh.
I appreciate the part of this to monitor it. I drive down that way, as I do with councillors who live up in the old Ward 6. I've never really, maybe I'm missing, maybe I'm driving at the wrong times, but I've never seen people trying to cross that street. I saw it once where there were 6 or 7 residents, and somebody who worked at the facility was taking them across over to get ice cream. And I can think that's about the only reason why, if I were living there, I'd want to cross street, is to go get an ice cream cone. What Michael just mentioned about the challenges, and I've wondered about that with the driveways, the bus stop, and everything else, it would be a challenge where you're going to put the crosswalk. Michael, you'd have to eliminate parking, wouldn't you?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, you would.
So you'd have to eliminate parking on 2nd Street for at least 100 feet on each side?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, at least.
Yeah.
It would be more than that, but yeah.
Okay. Councillor Bennett talked about a sign. We currently have one for geese, warning people about the geese crossing. I think, I guess a sign warning drivers if they still pay attention to those things, that pedestrian, the kind of signs we put up, pedestrian crossing. In last year, we put up signs at certain crossings, pedestrians crossing. Perhaps that might help. But I agree with B, we monitor it. The traffic flow in that area is, at times, it's heavy maybe, or semi-heavy, and a lot of times it's not that bad. I remember looking at the petition, and I found it hard to believe that a school 7 blocks away would say we need a crosswalk, because sometimes we take our kids on the other side of the street. I just couldn't understand that one. And why somebody owns a store on the same side as the Riverdale Terrace would also say he supported the crosswalk when nobody had to cross the street to get to his store. So sometimes these petitions are a bit misleading. It's like, here, sign it, whatnot. But now that they're going to establish a 2nd senior building on the other side, maybe somewhere down the line, next year or so, we might say, you know what, maybe we need it. I'm not going any further with this one, but anyway, I appreciate B, where we're going to study the situation. I know the one over in York Street. I haven't seen it used much, very, very little, and we have a traffic light a block away. And frankly, I thought it was a waste of money, because you can walk down the traffic light and cross there. So anyway, we're going to study the situation, and that sounds good.
Councillor Towndale.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I tend to agree with Councillor Hollingsworth on this one, and I will be voting against the recommendation. And I just want to comment a bit. Councillor McIntosh brought up the petition. I remember receiving it from someone who worked at Riverdale Terrace originally. 300 signatures, about 90 from residents of Riverdale Terrace. There were letters from the convenience store next door, and the reason for that, and the principal of one of the schools, there's 2 elementary schools. It's because, and I used to be one of those students at one of those schools. We used to go to that convenience store during lunch to get candy, and I'm sure there's still hundreds of kids that do that. Both schools are quite large right now, and that's why I think the principal of one of the schools and the owner of that store agree that there should be a crosswalk there. Right now in this year, because of COVID, we're not seeing that because school's been out. It started up again, then one of the schools shut due to COVID cases, so school's out. And that also reduces traffic flow when you think about parents who bring their kids to school and teachers who go to school to work. So I think we're not getting accurate statistics in this case. I think the original petition should have been attached to this report as an information item, because it also contained a letter of recommendation from former MP Guy Lozo. And, you know, the other letters were mentioned, but I think there is a need there. And Second Street, I have encountered people in the past, pre-COVID, trying to cross there from Riverdale Terrace to the ice cream store across the street, and mobility is an issue, at least what I witnessed. Last term, I think it was, council voted to put in the pedestrian crossing that was referenced near the apartments on Water Street, and that was there specifically to assist seniors in those apartments get to Lamru Park. I think I've seen them used once. I talked to someone who lived next door, and he said that he had never seen it used, and people were still crossing at York Street. But I would argue that this is different, especially with the amount of traffic, the amount of speed down that area. We know people speed down Second Street. That's not a secret by any means. It's needed, in my opinion. I guess that, you know, MTO has standards, that's great, but they don't apply to every situation or every municipality. You know, these cookie cutter standards aren't perfect by any means. And I think in this case, it's warranted. So this is something I would support, especially when you have that many people saying, hey, we need this. We put in the other one. I don't think we had anywhere near that. I don't even think there was a petition for it. So those are my comments on that.
Thank you, Councillor Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not going to support the recommendation for the simple reason that on the south side, the building has recreational facilities, and seniors will be going across there, not now because the building's not up yet, but once that building is up, they'll want to go across for a number of reasons. It's healthy when you have recreational facilities. Also, food services. The food services, a lot of the seniors will be going across to the dining room to eat over there, and that'll cause more people going across Second Street. When I go for my newspaper on Saturday, the speeding that on Second Street is awful. I mean, they don't slow down for anything. They just motorcycle one after the other, cars one after the other, speeding. In the mornings, in the afternoons, when I do go to Cowan's or go for an ice cream cone, that's when you see the traffic. Around 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock is just steady traffic. And when I went back to get this t-shirt tonight, I had to wait to get out on Second Street because of the traffic. And that's at 6 o'clock. In the mornings, people are going to work, and there's a media guy that got stopped not too long ago for speeding because he was late for work. So I will not support this, but I would like to administration to come back with some kind of an alternative, because that's a dangerous area, and it's seniors, myself, don't move as fast as we used to, and so they need some protection. Simple as that.
Councillor Carr.
Thank you. I'd just like to ask Mr. Forthrup, is it worth for you giving time for you to have another look at this situation and maybe talk to some of the residents of the seniors' homes that are there now and the ones that are coming up?
Through you, Madam Mayor. So one of the things we would like to do is that we have a planned capital project along Second Street in the next couple of years. So Second Street is due for resurfacing. Part of the recommendation B is to continue to do traffic studies along this area. That will allow the apartment along the north side, or the apartment complex, to be developed. And we can continue to conduct traffic studies when residents are in that building. And we can further assess whether or not a signal or any form of crosswalk is needed at that time. And we could potentially incorporate it into a future capital project, which would be the most cost-effective solution. But again, that is if it is warranted at that time.
So, okay, so you're saying, okay, right now it's not warranted, but in the future, that you're not talking 10 years from now, because talking much shorter time frame, is an opportunity for you to look at it and make a new decision if it's needed.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct. So we will continue to monitor it, and if anything changes, so will our recommendation. In regards to some of the speed issues that have been brought up tonight, those will also be reviewed as part of that work. We do not view that a signal will contribute at all to traffic calming. potentially could have the opposite effect, but we feel there's other manners in which you can provide traffic calming to Second Street.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor DePel.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I would say that I don't think that it's a waste of money when we're trying to invest in our seniors and making it a safer community. Riverdale Terrace has a lot of, it's not deemed a long-term care facility, so there is a lot of people who, it's a retirement residence. There's a lot of seniors that have moved in there, downsized from their home, and are very active, and so are out a lot. So I won't vote for the recommendation that's presented to us. And I think that there's some, for another evening, there's some other locations when it comes to retirement homes and long-term care facilities in Cornwall that should also be looked at. But I think that as we continue to grow, I think that it's needed, and I would say that people would feel a lot safer trying to cross Second Street. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'm going to support the resolution. My estimation, we asked our engineering division to look at this. They bring back a report and justify not putting a crosswalk there and to watch it, to monitor it in the future. And I think that's a wise choice. So to basically go against the recommendation, I think is, to me, it's difficult to accept. I'll support the recommendation and look forward to further reports as they monitor it. So.
Point of clarification. Can I ask one question? Michael, when it comes to monitoring the traffic, we have signs that, speed signs, or not speed signs, but monitoring signs that record the speed, the average speed, what time the people are speeding and how much traffic. Do we have that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, we do, and we provide that to city police.
Yeah. I don't think they've ever used it in that area.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't recall ever seeing it in that area, but it's certainly one area we could have some installed.
You can request that from the traffic department of the city police that they install that sign once the construction finishes up there, and we'll have a really good grasp. We'll have some scientific data that when the speeding is occurring, how much traffic and what times, and I think that'll, that'll really help us in making a decision and, clear things up.
Okay, now.
Recorded vote, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Recorded vote.
Councillors Claude McIntosh? Yes. Dennis Carr?
No.
Sid Gardner?
No.
Dean Hollingsworth?
Opposed?
Catalina Bard?
In favor?
Councillors Modeste Dupel?
Opposed?
Elaine McDonald?
In favor?
Todd Bennett?
In favor?
Justin Towndell?
No.
And Mr. Mayor.
In favor.
Five to five, Mr. Mayor. Defeated for want of majority.
Mm-hmm. So the motion was to.
To not,
So it's
not install anything. So the status quo remains.
okay. So therefore, you heard the clerk's announcement on this. The status quo will stay as is. All right, next piece of business.
The council received the unfinished business listing for September 27th, 2021.
Motion? Councillor McDonald, second by Councillor Bennett. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Communication. COVID-19 vaccination policy with a recommendation that council approve the vaccination policy with immediate effect.
Motion? Councillor DePel, Councillor Gardner. All in favor? Any discussion? Sorry. Sorry, Justin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had a question. I know the report indicates that there was consultation with I assume our lawyers, but I would have liked to have seen a legal opinion on this before approving it, just to make sure that we're covered.
MCAO,
I'm going to refer that to Mr. Clark.
Thank you. The policy's been reviewed by our law firms on each iteration, including all of its aspects, and we have a high degree of confidence that we could defend it in an event of any challenges.
Thank you. Is it possible to copy of this opinion?
There are several of them, and it's mostly emails versus a formal opinion.
Can I see them?
I will review them if that is the council's direction, yeah.
Sorry, but I asked if I could see them. Can I see the legal opinion from our lawyers, please?
Are you asking for it now, or, I'm not sure what his rights were, but we've had it legal opinion, I don't have them with me. It's through a number of successive emails. I can get one drafted specifically for you in a more concise manner, or I can go through all my emails and forward those along to you.
Whichever's easier, the emails or a formalized, notarized opinion is fine, but I'd like to see something, please. Thank you.
okay. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Bylaws. Bylaws 2021 to 17 and 2021 to 115 inclusive, listed on the agenda, for the exception of 113, are being presented to council for adoption.
Motion? Councillor McDonald, Councillor Bennett. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
And now for bylaw 113, to amend parking permit and fee schedule.
Motion? Councillor Bennett. Second by Councillor McDonald. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
We are at the moment in the meeting that we are looking for reports from standing, advisory, special, and ad-hoc committees of council.
Any reports? Councillor McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a report, but I do have a question. Are we as a city doing anything to mark the National Day of Reconciliation on September 30th?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we have got I'm going to look to our public information coordinator, but she might not have a mic. We are going to have a banner that is going to be displayed at the clock tower, like we have in previous last year. We have posted as well information just with respect to our city services and how those are impacted by September 30th. I think that we will also be sharing on social media some of the activities that we are aware of with Akwesasne. There is an event taking place on Facebook Live at 10 a.m. that I think anybody in the public can join. We also have the artwork that you have referred to. We will not have that in our community on September the 30th, but we will hopefully have it for a week later in October that we'll be able to have on display for 5 days. So those are several items. I'm just going to now refer it to Ms. Meldrum in case there's a couple of items that I haven't mentioned.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would just add maybe one thing. I did notice that the Cornwall Public Library is streaming a movie virtually that people can find. I believe it's called Birth of a Family. So that's another option people have if they're looking for a way to recognize the day.
Thank you very much. So just a follow-up question, where will we be, we'll be featuring the artwork We Were Children? And where, I wondered myself, what venue we could possibly invite it to.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, that hasn't been formally confirmed as of yet. I think we would like to know if we can if we might be able to move it while we have it on display. So on the 25th to the 29th, on the 25th, we actually have a council meeting. So it would be nice if we could have it on display here at the complex. And then it might also be nice to have it on display in some of our other buildings where we have a lot of public traffic. So whether that is at the Benson Center, potentially at the public library, but we'll have to work on that and coordinate that with the group and make sure that we're able to host it safely and take care of it.
Very good. So I think it might be appropriate just to mention that what it is a display of 200-plus vamps from children's moccasins arranged in concentric circles on a black ground, and it's a very moving exhibit.
Yes, and through you, Mr. Mayor, it's actually, I think, finding its way on a delegation to Ottawa on September 30th, correct?
It is, yes, it's going to Parliament Hill. That's why, I mean, it'd be nice to recommend to people that they go to the Traveling College and see it, but it's probably being dismantled tomorrow in preparation for the trip to Ottawa on Thursday. So it would be great that we're going to feature it later when it gets back.
Any other reports? Councillor McIntosh.
Don't have a report, but is the tobacco burn ceremony on September 30th at 6:30 in the morning at the harbor, is that a public event or?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, that is an event that both of our councils will participate in. At this point in time, it's not necessarily being published to be open to the broader public. But if we have people that are interested, I think we can try and determine how many we might be able to accommodate. But I think it kind of boils down to numbers and trying to, I think, maintain reasonable numbers at an event like that through the current pandemic situation.
I'm going to say at that hour, the only person who could draw a big crowd is Angelo Towndale for one of his breakfasts.
Yes, Councillor Gardner.
Reports from committees, because I didn't hear what the clerk said. Is that what we're doing right now? Right. Okay. I would like to, on behalf of really the Eastern Ontario Health Unit, and it goes with the chicken dinner that was held on Sunday at the Legion for the Hall of Fame for the Arts. And the report I want to bring forward is the COVID protocols were in place. There were no issues. Everyone who came in had to be vaccinated or they weren't coming in. People were separate and they came in with masks, so the protocols were followed with absolutely no issues or argument at all. So,
thank you, and it was a good chicken dinner too. Anything else? Not next.
Next is our confirming bylaw. Mr. Mayor, we're looking for a motion to adopt that.
Motion, Councillor Bennett, Councillor Gardner, all in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Carr, Councillor McDonald, all in favor? Carried. Thank you.
Our next regular meeting will be on Tuesday, October 12th.
Thank you for a good meeting.